up.
Yeah,
because I think those guys see it when they get to college. Everybody in college is a good football player. There's a reason why they're there. But what separates, and it's what I always tell our players, is how you work. Because you got to understand, the minute you get recruited to one of those colleges, they're calling the next guy to try to out-recruit you and to try to find somebody better than you. So you got to make sure you're always working and willing to put in that extra work to make sure those guys can't replace you.
Yeah.
And that's the way you see it. I think at the next level is the guys that are successful are those guys that do that and try to make sure they're out working everybody else.
Yeah, I remember, very distinctly, my first year at East, we played against Isaiah Simmons, who's having a heck of a career at Clemson right now. What's a guy that sticks out to you that you remember, like, seeing him on the field and you're just like, man, this guy is something else. He's a –
Yeah, I think it starts with me. We were playing Gardner Edgerton back when Bubba Starling was there. And I think you just saw the way Bubba played. He played loud, as a quarterback. You could hear him running by you. And I think you see that and you're kind of like, wow. There's a reason why that guy is what he is. The list can go on and on with some guys that, that we've played now, that we're playing against now, and that we've played against then. And you just see some of those guys are different. Some of them play different. They play a little bit faster. And that's, lucky for us, we've been fortunate enough to have some really good guys on our sideline too that I'm sure other coaches will say, well, this kid, and this kid. So, but Bubba is definitely the one guy with me that kind of sticks out because he was one of those guys, we felt like we had some good players that year. One was Justin McKay, who went to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Justin was a very good player. But seeing the way Bubba played against us and doing that, we're just like, wow. It was kind of amazing to sit back and see the type of player he was.
Yeah, one thing we talk about with winning programs is we talk about culture quite a bit, right? And you already spoke on that. Another thing we talk about is sometimes it can be hard to maintain the hunger once you win and keep winning and to keep that hunger going, right? We've heard one instance I've heard is actually Michael Jordan. Jordan never lacked the hunger, but some of his other teammates, they did. So he would run private workouts at his house, keep him going, keep the guys motivated. We've seen other teams, NFL teams or whatever, kind of fall off a little bit after Super Bowl winning seasons. What do you guys specifically do to come in each season with that same hunger to win again?
Yeah, I think one thing we do is we kind of meet with our seniors and kind of explain to them that it's their team. And I think you've seen that too, I think, with the way that our guys play. Every year we got 7 or 8 seniors that are first-time starters that are big-time players on the team. And I think, now where we've built this thing and where it is now, we couldn't always say that. So, I think how you keep these guys hungry every year is, hey, this is your chance. This is your time now. And also, though, it's cool seeing, our former players come back and talk to them. Yeah. Come back and be around them and tell them that, like we see Colin Grunhard, on TV, Ryan Willis, Jafar Armstrong, those guys. They come back, wearing their gear from their college, and they say, hey, the things you guys do here, they're going to help you when you want to get to the next level. And I think you can have a coach say it, but when you have your buddies say that and guys that you looked up to, I know when I was in high school, if I had, a former player or a teammate come back and tell me something, I was going to do it.
Yeah.
So I think you see that and you see the ability of those guys to come back and reach out to those guys, and explain to them the importance of working the right way. And that's the way we are. That's the way that our guys work. They understand that every team we play is trying to beat us, and wants to beat us. So I think once they know that, it's pretty easy, I think, to kind of get that point across to those guys and make sure that they're working the right way. And but ultimately it comes down to your seniors, and you're always as good as your seniors are because you need that leadership, you need that voice. And you see it in college and you see it in the NFL, with some of that. And you see it in college basketball. Some of these one-and-done teams don't win championships.
Right.
Because they don't have those guys that have been through it for 3 or 4 years and understand the ups and downs that come with it and understand the pressure that come with it. And I think that's one thing, over with us at Miege, we're really lucky and fortunate to have a great group of kids in our locker room that understand that and understand the importance of it.
Yeah, I've always said, and other coaches I've worked with have always said, your best teams are player-led, not coaches-led. You've got the kids saying, hey, we got workouts today, so you better be there. Or if Johnny doesn't show up, it's not a coach saying, hey, well, where's Johnny? It's one of his teammates calling Johnny or dragging him out of bed, saying, hey, we need you. I need you. We're teammates. We're in this thing together.
Oh, yeah.
And, it always means more coming from those guys than from one of us, because they're just like, here's some old guy. I don't know.
Yep.
All
that's
those
100%,
things.
Gary. I know we go through it. If a guy misses a workout, yes, I'll reach out to the kid, but I'm going to make sure one of his buddy talks to him too. And says, hey, you need to make sure he understands, that we missed you here today, and that we need to make sure we get you in here tomorrow, and it can't happen again. And I think too that's where I was lucky a couple years ago. I spoke up in Fargo, North Dakota State. I spoke at a clinic up there, so I got some time to talk to Coach Kleiman a little bit about the culture he built there. With the expectation, with the championship. I think that year they lost 2 games, and it was a disappointing season.
Yeah.
And the one thing he told me, and it's something that has stuck with me since that day, is you can tell a championship program by just watching the other players and how they treat each other. And I think that's one thing we've tried to instill in our guys over at Miege is, if somebody is doing something that's not up to the standard we want, it is going to get corrected by a player before a coach. And I think that's something, for as long as I coach, I'm going to remember that because it is true. Coaches can yell till they're blue in the face to these guys about something, but the minute one of your players tells you something and does it, that's, I think, when it really sits with them. So, I think that's something that we're trying to build on, I think, over at Miege, is make sure our players are the ones leading our guys.
That makes a ton of sense because one of our, we spoke about it earlier, but one of our common themes that we get when we have coaches on the show that are successful is culture. Culture is the biggest thing. Almost besides, when we talk about programs that have been turned around, culture was like one of the first things they said. They set winning attitude, and then the players believing in each other. So, just reaffirming that fact right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. We, at East, when I got there, Coach Delaney had already kind of, laid a bunch of that groundwork, and the coach previous to him had laid a bunch of groundwork and kind of got East, trending in the right direction, and then now Coach Hoover is keeping us going. So it's been a lot of fun, from where East was 10 years ago to see, we're not having the run you guys are, but last year it was a fun year because I did have a senior, PJ Spencer in my group D-line that I could count on, and he would take the time to show some of our younger guys, like, hey, this is the way we BVR. This is where your hand placement needs to be. Yep. And, even though I'm saying it, I feel like I could just get a recorder because I'm saying the same thing every day sometimes. But, they would listen to him before they would listen to me. Oh, yeah. And that's just the way it's going to be. And, that's a great thing when you have a guy like that. He's going to Northwestern and, that would take that time with some of those younger guys and bring them along knowing, hey, this program's still going to be here. It's here before me. Yep. It's going to be here after me. And, I'm just going to make it better while I'm here, and for future generations.
Yep.
So, it's always great to see those guys. And, we had a bunch of other seniors last year, too, that did a good job of that. And, how do you kind of get your seniors? Is it just the mentality that they don't want to let the group before them down, the group after them down? Do you just constantly preach that with them? You have one-on-one meetings with them? Do you do it as a group?
Yeah, there's some guys that we do meet one-on-one with. If a guy needs to take a little bigger role or leadership role with the team. But, I think it's getting the group into it, getting the group involved in it. And it's a challenge sometimes. There's some guys that it's a struggle to get to want to be in that position. Because anytime you're in a leadership position, there's bad days. And there's days you got to be a guy that not everybody likes. There's a decision you make that not, some people might not agree with. But at the end of the day, you got to make that decision because it's best for what you want and it's best for the team. So I think if we can get our seniors to buy into that belief, a couple years ago we had a guy that was a linebacker, Danny Wallace, and Danny would have played some at linebacker, but we needed him at defensive line. So he started at defensive line, 13 games for us, won a state championship, and I think has some great memories about that. And it was one of those decisions as a staff. We felt like it was best for our team to do that. And there's some players that may not buy into that, like, no, I'm not going to do that. So I think you just gotta believe it, and they gotta trust you. I think trust is a big word, coaches and players. That's one thing I believe, and I believe in giving our players a lot of trust. There's a lot of things I do as a coach where other coaches may come out and say, "Wait a minute, you let your guys do that?" Like, yeah, they got to believe in it. They got to trust me that I trust them getting the work done. So I think the more you can do that, the better it is for the program.
Yeah, and this year's seniors, we're kind of a work in progress with that. Still, we had some guys that didn't have big roles on our team last year. That now we're asking to step up and become leaders. So, I get that, and getting the struggle of those guys getting involved and working with them. But of your 5 state championships, in the last 5 years, is there one that sticks out more than another one, memory-wise? Or maybe you thought kind of at this point in the year, before you even play a game, that you're like, man, I don't know if we're going to be very good, and you're kind of down, and then the kids surprise you.
Yeah, I think you always try to pick one or a memory of every one. Obviously the first one in 2014 against Hayden was a big one. But I think the big one with me was 2 years ago, Andale. It was the last time with Coach Hoover and Coach Grunhard. I think once they moved on, I think we kind of knew the end was near. I think with that group, just with how successful they've been, and we knew other opportunities were going to come about for them. And the three of us hugged there right at the end of the game. We all kind of looked each other in the eye, and all three of us were kind of crying a little bit, kind of knowing the things we've accomplished and what we've built and how we had built that thing. And just seeing a guy like Colin Grunhard, who had been in our program as a kid when his dad took over the program, had been coming to stuff since 5th grade, 4th grade, and to see the look on his face after that game. And there's every year. I think you look at the Ice Bowl when we beat it, Andover Central. Dawson Downing ended his high school career with a 6-touchdown, 240-yard performance, just dominated the game. There's everyone in that game. We had a senior defensive back, Ray Vaca, had 2 touchdowns. Sophomore year 2014 against Hayden, Jafar Armstrong had a coming out party, 3 touchdowns as a sophomore. Carter Putz leading us as a sophomore to a state championship. Even this year, we had a first-time starter quarterback, Sam Pedrati, led us to a state championship. So every one, there's always going to be 1 or 2 guys that you really remember, and you just look back at those memories, and you look back at the highlight videos, and you try to find those good ones. But that one a couple years ago was a big one, I think, just with the way that our staff was and how close we were. Coach Hoover started coaching 12 years ago with us. He was young, he didn't have any kids, he wasn't married yet, and I was the same way. So I think you grow up around those guys and you get close to them. And obviously the way I think Tim treated us as an assistant coach, he still treats me the same way, like I'm one of his kids. And you put so much time week to week in with those guys, and in the summer, like we've talked about now, you're with those guys 9 months out of the year.
Yeah.
So to be able to share special moments with those guys is awesome.
Yeah, it's always, that last game, whether you win or lose, it's always a bittersweet moment, because you think about, at least I do, all the work I put in, going back to June, and just think, man, all those hot days and all those cold days and all those practices and all the hours watching film, and you're just like, man, it's kind of like, what am I going to do for the next 2 or 3 months? Yeah. I mean, obviously it's time to hit the clinic circuit and, to learn some things, and that's a fun part of the game too. But, it's always, unfortunately for me, I haven't been on the winning end of that last game, at the state championship yet. But, it's always kind of tough. And, looking at those seniors always just kind of breaks my heart. Especially the guys knowing that they're not going to go on to play college football, and that's the last time they're ever going to be able to suit up and compete for their school or to compete. And,
that's what we talk about with our guys leading up to that state week is it's your last time you're going to represent the school. And I think when these guys, we've been lucky enough to where we've been in situations where we've been able to pull seniors off one by one and let the crowd acknowledge them, and I think those guys come off and you see the tears in their eyes, and and it's even with a win, but those guys pour everything into it, and a lot of our guys grew up around our program and they want to play at Bishop Miege, and I think to see that and to see the work and to see the reward some of these guys have, I can remember, every year there's always a couple guys that we got to drag off the field at the end of the game and say, hey man, the game's over. trophy presentation is done. We got to get in the locker room and get home, and they just don't want to leave. Coach, I don't want to take my uniform off, and I think